BBC News.
If only we had weather like they're having there at the moment. Let's catch up with how things look here. Get the latest from Alex. Hi, Alex.
Hello there, Tim. Our weather's certainly got teeth at the moment. More heavy downpours across the UK at the moment and some very strong winds. That's the big problem over the next few hours. Strong winds combining again with high tides, bringing the real risk of flooding, particularly around the coast of Wales and southwest England. Tomorrow, well, it's far from a picnic, but overall things improving. Still breezy, but not as many showers and a bit more sunshine. Bands of showers swirling around low pressure systems this evening. Very gusty conditions around the coast in the west and also for time across northern England. Slowly the winds start to ease a little bit and it won't be as cold tonight. Still breezy tomorrow, still plenty of showers across Scotland with snow on the hills, but not as many showers elsewhere, just one or two. Many places staying dry, a little bit more in the way of sunshine and the winds continuing to ease down somewhat. Still a breezy day, but we should see temperatures well around or a little bit above average. Maybe feeling a touch warmer. We could get to double figures across parts of the south. There is more wet and windy weather to come though next week. All the weather, all the flood warnings are as always available online.
With the vast changes in the global economy, understanding what lies behind the headlines matters more than ever. Talking Business with me, Linda Yu, will examine the trends that are reshaping our world. We will focus on what those changes mean for our everyday lives through insightful discussions, distinctive films, and interviews with key personalities at work and at play.
Talking Business, tonight at 8:30 on BBC News.
It is here in these parliamentary back rooms that those in power are brought to account.
That's not what the whistleblower told us.
Where ministers, chief executives and civil servants must explain themselves.
Please stick to the question.
And where the truth comes out.
I mean, why don't you just call a spade for once?
On the nation's biggest issues. Enter these rooms and witness the Parliamentary Select Committees. Tuesday and Wednesday mornings from 9:30, live and uncut on BBC Parliament.
Good afternoon, you're watching BBC News. I'm Tim Wilcox. Coming up in a moment. Click. Before that, our main headlines. 5 severe flood warnings remain in place and there's the threat of yet more due to high tides and gale-force winds in southwest England and the Midlands. Labour peer Sally Morgan accuses Number 10 of making a determined effort to appoint Conservative supporters to public posts after she was told that her contract to be head of the schools inspector at Ofsted would not be renewed. Violence has erupted in the Thai capital Bangkok on the eve of a general election. A number of people are said to have been injured in fighting between government supporters and opposition demonstrators. The Labour leader Ed Miliband sets out plans to reduce the power of the unions and MPs in future Labour leadership contests by using the one-member, one-vote election process. Headlines coming up at the top of the hour. That is with Rajesh. From me, though, it is goodbye, and it's now time for Click.
You're the keeper of people's secrets. The government wants access. Do you give them the keys, or... This week, Click meets the man who's sending a message to the US government, the only one he wants them to read. We're in court with the founder of the email service the FBI wanted to crack to get at Edward Snowden. We'll also show you where you've been recently and how to disappear from Google's location services. And we have the eye-popping headwear that could really turn heads in the coming years. All that plus the latest tech news, and if you needed another reason to get sucked into the programme, we'll show you how to build yourself a black hole in Webscape. Welcome to Click. I'm Spencer Kelly. Can you ever have a completely private email conversation? Well, that's what's been at stake this week in Richmond, Virginia, as the latest skirmish in the fight over privacy unfolds. Now, as with so much in this area, it all goes back to the former NSA contractor Edward Snowden. It was, of course, he who brought to light just how much of our data and communications are sifted by government agencies. Being, of course, aware of this himself, Snowden used a highly encrypted personal email service. And this week, the spotlight shines on the email provider he used, Lavabit. Run by Ladar Leveson, Lavabit's security was so high it was thought near impossible for even government agencies to crack. Last summer, though, Leveson was asked to hand over the keys that Lavabit used to encrypt the data passing through its servers, so the FBI could read the emails of one of its users. That user is believed to have been Edward Snowden. Instead, he shut the service down without warning and issued a statement on his website saying he would not, as he put it, become complicit in crimes against the American people. Leveson is now appealing the government's ruling in what's being seen as one of the most important cases for the future of privacy on the internet. We sent Jen Copestake to Virginia to catch up with him at his appeal hearing.
It's here at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit that Ladar Leveson of Lavabit will have his appeal in front of a panel of 3 judges. He won't hear the decision for several weeks. After the hearing, we head back to Washington, D.C., where Ladar has been staying. What did you think about the hearing today?
Well, on the one hand, I'm certainly happy that I finally had my day in court. I just hope that the justices are able to parse what is a very complex technical question.
Hey, Snowden was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize.
The Lavabit appeal could have far-reaching implications for the future of internet security. Depending on the outcome, it could set a precedent for whether law enforcement agencies can force businesses to hand over encryption keys, unlocking all their customers' data. Encryption keys secure all communications coming in and out of a network, but with the large amount of data now being shared online, the software needs updating to maintain privacy.
What most people don't realize is that the major mail protocols that we use today were created in the 70s, when a half-dozen computers were connected on DARPANET, and everybody knew everybody else that was on the internet. And security was never a focus because we didn't think the intelligence agencies were collecting all of the communications going over the internet. Now that that's become clear, it just illustrates the need for us to rethink many of the protocols that we use on the internet.
Ladar has started a new project called Darkmail, which aims to bring encrypted security to everyone, not just cryptographers. Darkmail is a joint venture between Lavabit and Silent Circle, a company specializing in telephony encryption. Silent Circle's president and founder is Phil Zimmermann, an internet legend who designed one of the first privacy protocols, PGP, or Pretty Good Privacy.
I've been worried about surveillance technology for many years, but what we've seen now recently from the revelations from Snowden is that the surveillance state is becoming more powerful than anyone imagined. Everything that we do is being tracked and monitored and recorded, and I think it's bad for civil liberties. I admire what he did. I admire Ladar's decision, and in fact, that's why we thought it would be nice to work together.
If he's not successful in his appeal, Ladar says he may consider taking the case here to the Supreme Court, but that would have huge cost implications. Since shutting down Lavabit, Ladar has relied on crowdfunding to pay for his legal fees.
I've been fortunate that my parents are so proud of me. They've been effectively taking care of me since I shut down my company. And it's allowed me the ability to really become what is almost a full-time activist. It's scary to think that our government is slowly gaining unfettered access to the entire world's communications, and that they're harvesting those communications and storing them for an indefinite period of time. I trust the government when they provide adequate transparency, and I can verify that they are not abusing the authority that they have been given. I do not trust a government that operates in secret.
With more revelations on the scope of American spy programs from Edward Snowden being released almost every week, the debate over internet privacy is only going to get more intense.
The discussion, the debate has just started. We're going to be discussing these issues for the next 3-4 years. I think there may come a day when the United States is no longer associated with the word freedom in people's minds. The sad thing is that I think I'm too much of an American to abandon my country when that happens.
Jane Copestake in Virginia. Well, Jamie Bartlett is a security and privacy researcher and specialist, and he's agreed to meet me in this very public location for safety. Jamie, hi.
Hello.
Is this something that we ordinary people who have nothing to hide need to be worried about?
I think it's really important that people feel they can communicate securely, whether it's individuals, businesses. It's not just about being able to hide yourself from the government. Being able to communicate safely and securely, browse the internet securely, is incredibly important because there are plenty of third parties out there, nefarious third parties that might want to see what you're doing. More broadly, it's the ability to communicate freely with fellow citizens or whoever you wish is an extremely important right. It's very good for the health of society to be able to do that.
Can we assume it is now impossible to have a conversation away from prying eyes?
I mean, I think it's always safe to assume there's a possibility that your online communications are being monitored, but actually there are a lot of pretty good, pretty secure ways that you can communicate with other people. For example, the use of PGP encryption. It's relatively simple, it's used by a large number of people, and it's very, very hard to crack. So while there are always ways of security services trying to get in, and we don't know exactly what they can and can't do, even with these revelations by Edward Snowden, it's not quite as easy as people think to monitor everything. But equally, there are ways of evading it.
Does it seem to you that since all these revelations have started surfacing, more and more ordinary people have decided to take action to develop anti-surveillance methods?
In 1991, what we saw was the launch of something called the crypto wars, of citizens trying to evade surveillance, counter-surveillance by the people. And I think we're entering into a second crypto war. Over the last 12 months or so, there's been a pretty dramatic increase in both sort of technical software developers and ordinary citizens figuring out ways of trying to evade surveillance, the sort of citizen counter-surveillance movement. There's been a growth in crypto parties around the world where people learn how to use PGP encryption or browse the net anonymously. And there's very interesting new software being developed for example, a secure alternative to Skype called Jitsi. There's new ways of being able to send text messages more anonymously. And that includes Chinese dissidents, ordinary citizens who just want to make sure that their communications are secure. But of course, exactly the same tools and techniques are going to be used by serious and organised criminals. So that's the great challenge that we face.
Okay, Jamie, thank you very much for your time. If anyone asks, we weren't here. Okay. Now, of course, it's not just governments who are after your data. Sometimes it's companies which are providing you a service and which you've agreed can track you in the first place. Take a look at this. The Lunar New Year is the reason behind the world's biggest annual migration. Gongxi Fatsai, by the way. And these coloured lines show the movement of hundreds of millions of people over this period. Their locations have been tracked because they use the largest search engine in China, Baidu. And over here, if you've allowed Google to access the location data from your smartphone, the same thing is happening to you all the time. Take a look at this. If you go into Google Dashboard, you can access any location data that's been collected on you. For example, here's what I got up to during our visit to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas a few weeks ago. You can cycle through each day to see, for example, where the boss went skiing earlier this month, or you can chart my driving trip out of Las Vegas and into the desert. Pretty cool. Or spooky, depending on your point of view. Now, of course, you may very well know that you've signed up for something like this, but let's be honest, sometimes apps can install on our phones and we agree to the permissions without really realizing the consequences. Fortunately, you do have control over what Google can see of your location. You can switch it off entirely through the dashboard or delete any or all of your history. Anyway, next up, it's a look at this week's tech news. And more from Edward Snowden first, with revelations that British intelligence agencies have been snooping on users of YouTube, Facebook and Blogger. The leaks, published by America's NBC network, suggest that in 2012, GCHQ monitored Facebook likes and comments that weren't supposed to be public. Facebook says it has since encrypted much of its data. All three companies have denied granting GCHQ access to their servers. It's also emerged that both the NSA and GCHQ made use of information leaked from mobile phone applications, including Angry Birds, many of which send out the handset's ID and location on a regular basis. GCHQ hasn't commented, but some hackers have, by defacing the Birds website. Orange has become the first major operator to include Europe-wide calls and data use in a monthly subscription plan. The move is expected to be copied by other EU operators after regulators promised to stamp out roaming charges by 2016. It may not save customers much cash though. The cheapest of the two tariffs starts at €90 per month. Last year, UK operator 3 did something similar across 11 countries, including the US, reporting a 10-fold increase in data use in those countries. And finally, another step forward in the world of 3D printing, perhaps the ultimate one, as Stratasys unveiled the first machine that can print objects made of mixed and multicoloured materials. The company claims that the $330,000 machine will halve the time it takes to create prototypes by using triple jetting, mixing differing amounts of colour dyes, rubber and plastic simultaneously to create the desired object. Last week we had another reminder of the heat and hype surrounding wearable displays when one American startup raised $250,000 in just one day to crowdfund its unique headset. And with mounting speculation that Google might finally be ready to release its own glass eyewear, Dan Simmons has been looking at the pros and cons of looking like a cyborg.
Heads up. Eyewear is the focus for many developers at the moment, most of whom are popping tiny screens into headsets. But one startup is hoping we'll look at things in a very different way. Inside, the player is actually looking at 2 million mirrors that flip around to bounce light straight into the eye. Special lenses help bring that image into focus, so there's no need for a screen. The result, it's claimed, is a pixelless, stunning image, although there's still a year or so of testing to be done. Using more conventional means, Sony has had a home theatre headset available since 2012, but its latest version tracks your head movements, courtesy of a gyroscope and accelerometer in the back, so wearers can look around the scene. For dedicated gamers, the Oculus Rift headset goes even further with a 360-degree game world fed through 2 HD screens. And then there are headsets made for the real world. This pair from Recon hits the market in the next few months, making use of specific apps for each situation, linking up to the net to overlay real-time data.
OK Glass, get directions to Covent Garden Station.
Perhaps the most famous of these is Google Glass. Still in beta testing, the voice-activated specs hook up to your smartphone, offering a heads-up map with directions, web searches, or to share pictures or videos that you might take using the built-in camera. But why not simply use your smartphone?
So phones are quite antisocial when you think about it. If you want to do an activity, you have to look down, take it out of your pocket, put it back in. Whereas having a headset, it allows you the freedom to actually just get on with your life. You see something that's interesting to you, you can have a photo taken, you can have a conversation with someone and engage with them without having to fact find by sneaking around in your pocket.
But is it cool to look like this?
The problem is it looks quite, I don't want to say the word ugly, but it is very much kind of unaesthetic. People don't want to wear things that are obviously technology. They want something that's sleek. They want sunglasses or a pair of normal glasses that incorporates technology in a more easy to use way.
Sony is experimenting with this pair that adds info to what you can see while watching TV, if you're willing to look like Jason Bradbury for a bit.
Sony likes the idea of not having to look at a second device, maybe a mobile phone, but rather letting fans just watch the game. You don't take your eyes off the screen because all the information you might need, like the goal scoreline or tweets that come up from other fans, appear right before your eyes.
The company is adding more functions and claims its design makes me look so much better than Google's.
And with the discrete way that we display information internally so that only the wearer sees it, there's no reason for you to have to constantly move your eyes up and away and break that eye contact and ultimately cause a distraction to your audience if you're speaking to someone.
The lack of arms on this prototype, of course, would probably prove even more distracting. And perhaps the most futuristic vision is offered by these space glasses from Meta that create virtual interfaces like a laptop or model for the user to manipulate with their bare hands. Only the wearer can see what they're doing, which to the rest of us could make them look particularly stupid.
Dan Simmons. And as if they heard Dan coming, take a look at this. Google has released some snaps of frames it will offer for sale to use with its Glass product, including these sleek pairs of shades which will sell for $150. So even if that doesn't convince you that headsets can look cool, at least no one will recognise you while you're wearing them. And now it's time for our ever sensible look at all that's best on the web. Here comes Kate Russell with Webscape.
World of Warplanes is a free-to-play dogfighting sim that delivers adrenaline-pumping, massively multiplayer team action in an authentic lineup of over 100 different aircraft from the golden era of military aviation. Upgrades and customizations can be earned over time, or you can pay with real-world cash for some in-game currency if you're too impatient to wait. Flying anything from the biplanes of the 1930s up to the first jet planes of the 1950s. This is fast and furious dogfighting fun, where teams of 15 players on each side are pitted against each other in a battle to the death. There are already millions of pilots signed up on the site, so you'll never be short of someone to shoot out of the skies. It is a hefty old download, but well worth the wait, as you'll be out on the aerial battlefield in no time once installed, as the learning curve is very comfortable. The YouTube channel is a great place to head while you wait for the download, where they've done a really nice job of presenting tutorials and guides with a historic newsreel feel to get you in the mood. Cameras in modern smartphones are now such good quality they can realistically replace expensive digital cameras. But if you want all the specialist shooting styles and features, you're going to need a folder full of apps as well. But not if you download a better camera for Android, which gives you all the multi-functions of a high-end camera through one central dashboard. This app is all about capturing the moment. There are no post-production filters or touch-up tools in here. It doesn't even save your photos inside the app. They just go straight to the camera roll like normal photos. There are loads of great features, including burst photography, night shot, panoramas, and HDR or high dynamic range with no lengthy processing time required. While the app is free, some of the features included are in trial mode, so you'll have to pay eventually if you want to keep them. For today's internet generation, it's all about being disposable. If you want the Snapchat appeal in the form of social media platform Twitter, then you'd come up with QuickDesk. This completely anonymous social platform is a way of sending messages of up to 300 characters out into the great unwashed internet. After typing it up, you select how long the message will remain in the system for before it self-destructs for 1, 10 or 100 days from when you hit send. The public timeline is hidden, so you can't just browse through the post, you'll have to find a hashtag to query instead. If all this makes you ask, why? The only sensible answer is probably, why not? It's actually been launched as a piece of conceptual art by Irish photographer Kevin Abosh. Not everything interesting online needs a purpose.
60-second adventures in astronomy.
How do you make a black hole? Apart from the obvious answer, very carefully, that is the topic of this week's Video of the Week, from the Open University's 60-second Adventures In series, which are well worth checking out on their YouTube channel.
Chandrasekhar calculated that if a star is big enough, when its fuel runs out, there is nothing to stop gravity from making its core collapse to create a black hole. Unfortunately for Chandrasekhar, his contemporaries, like Sir Arthur Eddington, just didn't believe him. But it turns out he was right, and in 1983 he eventually won a Nobel Prize for it.
From dark mail to black holes in just under 25 minutes. Don't say we're not good to you. And of course, Kate's links are available at our website if you miss them, bbc.co.uk/click, the address you need. And if you have an opinion on anything you've seen today, and I suspect you just might, we'd love to hear it. Click at bbc.co.uk is our email address. We're also on Twitter, Facebook and Google+ too. That is it for now though. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Hello, that more severe weather to talk about over the coming days. Tomorrow looks a little bit calmer, but certainly this evening the problem's going to be with strong winds, especially in western areas, bringing the risk of coastal flooding. Tomorrow, well, it'll still be a breezy day, but the winds won't be as strong and there will be fewer showers, better chance of seeing a bit of sunshine. There's been some sunshine today across parts of the east, but this big swirl of cloud is a dominant area of low pressure that's been throwing showers across much of the UK. Some heavy downpours and the winds have been picking up. Very gusty around these western coasts. We've already seen gusts of 60, 70 miles an hour. The gust of winds picking up across northern England. Well inland we could see gusts of 60 miles an hour through the evening. So there could be some further problems over the coming hours. There are severe flood warnings in force. 08459 881188 is the flood line number. And there could be coastal flooding as these strong winds coincide with the high tides this evening. Now, the strong winds will keep the temperatures up tonight. There's the risk of some icy patches across parts of Scotland. Still some wintry showers here. And they'll continue into tomorrow over the hills and mountains. But generally, it's an improving story. The winds are dying down. Still some showers, but many places staying dry. A little bit more in the way of sunshine tomorrow. Generally another fine day across the east. As I say, still some snow showers across northern Scotland, but not as many as there have been. And the winds gradually easing through the day. Still quite breezy with a few showers across Northern Ireland, but again, generally a drier day than today. And down the eastern side of England, like today, many places staying dry with the spells of sunshine. Still a cool breeze, but temperatures a little bit higher and those winds not as strong. A few showers for Wales and southwest England, but again, nothing like the downpours that we've seen during the course of Saturday. Monday, however, sees another band of rain pushing into Northern Ireland and then affecting other western areas through the day. That could, again, cause a few problems, and it may well also be accompanied by some very strong winds, particularly early in the day in the southwest. Many eastern areas will stay largely dry, and generally dry on Tuesday as well. However, it doesn't last. As we go through the week, another area of low pressure, turning things pretty ugly for Wednesday. Lots of isobars on the chart. So yes, next week we will continue to be talking about spells of heavy rain and the likelihood of further gales. The number of weather warnings is likely to increase. You can view all the current weather warnings and all of those flood warnings, including the severes, on the BBC weather website.
The evolution of Scotland.
There was a sense in which we were opening up and looking out at the world.
In the first in a series of documentaries, we ask how the events that help shape the country have led us to one of the most important votes in Scotland's history.
Britain now has oil.
People started to be much more confident about their pride in Scotland and all things Scottish.
Scotland's Smoking Gun, tomorrow at 10:30 on BBC News.
With the vast changes in the global economy, understanding what lies behind the headlines matters more than ever. Talking Business with me, Linda Yu, will examine the trends that are reshaping our world. We will focus on what those changes mean for our everyday lives through insightful discussions, distinctive films, and interviews with key personalities at work and at play.
Talking Business, tonight at 8:30 on BBC News.
Sport from every angle.
Welcome to Sports Day.
Get all the action and analysis on Sports Day. Tonight at 6:30 and 7:30 on BBC News.
This is BBC News. I'm Rajesh Merchandani. The headlines at 4. Efforts are being made around the country to shore up flood defences. Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service are working at 3 sites across Somerset.
We've got 8 high-volume pumps moving in excess of 3 million litres an hour, which is equivalent about 1 Olympic swimming pool's worth of water every hour.
The Environment Agency has issued 5 severe flood warnings, but this map shows just how many more areas are considered to be potentially at risk. Also in the next hour, a gun battle on the streets of Bangkok. Supporters and opponents of Thailand's Prime Minister clash ahead of tomorrow's elections. Loosening the link, Labour leader Ed Miliband announces plans to reform his party's historic ties with the trade unions.
It is about a relationship more with individual trade unionists and less about the relationship with trade union leaders. Of course, it's the case that trade unions themselves will continue to affiliate to the Labour Party, but it's about saying in the 21st century, we do want to hear the voices of individuals.
Good afternoon and welcome to BBC News. 5 severe flood warnings have been issued by the Environment Agency, meaning that there's a danger to life. 2 of them affect North Cornwall and the remainder parts of the River Severn. High tides and gale force winds could cause water levels to rise yet further. Our correspondent Duncan Kennedy reports.
The weather just keeps on coming. This was Aberystwyth this morning, taking another pounding just a month after its promenade was battered by a separate storm.